Hey there, literature lovers. I'm Luna Lane, and welcome to today's deep dive into one of the most thought-provoking dystopian novels ever written. We're talking about Aldous Huxley's A Brave New World, a book that predicted our obsession with technology, instant gratification, and social media way back in 1932. That's right, nearly a century ago, Huxley was already asking the questions we're grappling with today. What happens when pleasure becomes our highest value? Can technology make us truly happy? And what does it really mean to be human? So grab your soma, just kidding. And let's explore this fascinating, disturbing, and surprisingly relevant world together. By the end of our journey, you'll not only understand what happens in the story, but you'll be thinking critically about the themes that make this novel a timeless warning about the future of humanity. Picture this. It's the year 632 after Ford. Yes, as in Henry Ford, the car manufacturer who's basically worshipped as a god in this world. We're in London, but not the London you know. This is a world where humans are manufactured in bottles, where everyone belongs to a strict caste system, and where the government drug called soma keeps everyone blissfully happy and compliant. Huxley presents us with what initially seems like a utopia. There's no war, no poverty, no disease, and certainly no unhappiness, or so it appears. People are conditioned from birth to love their predetermined roles in society. The world is efficient, clean, and everyone seems content. But as we'll discover, this perfection comes at a devastating cost: the loss of individual freedom, authentic relationships, and genuine human experience. Now let's meet our cast of characters, each representing different responses to this controlled society. Bernard Marx is our first protagonist, an alpha-plus psychologist who feels like an outsider despite his high caste. He's physically smaller than other alphas, and questions the system, making him both sympathetic and somewhat unlikable. Bernard represents the individual who sees the flaws in society, but lacks the courage to truly rebel. John the Savage comes from the Savage Reservation in New Mexico, where people still live according to old-world values. They have families, experience pain, read Shakespeare, and believe in God. John becomes our lens for examining this brave new world through fresh, critical eyes. Lenina Crown is a beautiful beta who works in the hatchery. She's perfectly conditioned to her society's values, but begins to question them through her relationships with Bernard and John. Lenina represents the average citizen, well-meaning but thoroughly programmed. Helmholtz Watson is Bernard's friend, an alpha-plus lecturer who writes propaganda but yearns to create something meaningful. He represents the artist trapped in a world that has no place for true creativity. Mustapha Mond is one of the 10 world controllers who govern this society. He's highly intelligent, well-read, and fully aware of what humanity has sacrificed for stability. Mond represents the philosophical justification of the system. He knows the cost, but believes it's worth paying. Our story begins with a tour of the central London hatchery, where humans are literally manufactured on an assembly line. Babies are created in bottles, conditioned while developing, and then programmed through hypnopedia sleep teaching to accept their roles. This opening immediately establishes the dehumanization at the heart of this society. We learn about the caste system. Alphas and betas are the thinking classes, while gammas, deltas, and epsilons are deliberately stunted to perform menial labor. The motto, community, identity, stability, reveals the society's priorities: collective good over individual rights. Bernard feels alienated because he doesn't fit the physical ideal of his caste. When he takes Lenina to the Savage Reservation in New Mexico, they encounter a world that shocks them. People grow old, have children naturally, experience pain and passion, and practice religion. Here they meet John, who was born on the reservation, to Linda, a woman from the civilized world who was left behind years ago. John has learned to read from a volume of Shakespeare's complete works, giving him a poetic, passionate vocabulary that contrasts sharply with the simplified, controlled language of the world state. When Bernard brings John and Linda back to London, John becomes a celebrity, the savage, who fascinates society. But John is horrified by what he sees: the casual sex, the drug use, the waste of human potential, and the complete absence of meaning or struggle. The dramatic climax occurs when John tries to free Delta workers by throwing their soma rations out the window, leading to a riot. This scene represents the clash between individual liberation and social stability. One of the novel's most important scenes is John's debate with Mustapha Mond. Mond explains that their society chose happiness and stability over truth and beauty. He reveals that they have Shakespeare, the Bible, and science locked away, because these things create instability. John argues for the right to be unhappy, to struggle, to suffer. In essence, to be fully human. Unable to live in either world, the reservation or civilization, John retreats to a lighthouse outside London to live in solitude and practice self-denial. But society won't leave him alone. Tourists come to gawk at the savage, and in a moment of despair and self-loathing after participating in an orgy, John takes his own life. Now let's explore the major themes that make this novel so powerful and enduring. Huxley shows us how technology, when prioritized over human values, can strip away our humanity. The assembly line production of humans, the use of soma to eliminate all discomfort, and the conditioning that replaces genuine education, all demonstrate how technological solutions can create spiritual problems. Think about our current relationship with social media, dating apps, and artificial intelligence. Huxley's warning feels remarkably prescient. The central conflict is between personal freedom and social stability. The world state has eliminated conflict, but also choice. Citizens are conditioned to want what the state needs them to want. This raises critical questions. Is a stable, happy society worth the loss of individual freedom? Can true happiness exist without the possibility of unhappiness? John argues that suffering is essential to the human experience. It teaches us compassion, gives meaning to joy, and drives us to create art and seek truth. The world state has eliminated suffering, but in doing so, has eliminated growth, meaning, and authentic human connection. Huxley distinguishes between immediate pleasure and deeper happiness. Soma provides instant gratification, but prevents real satisfaction. Casual sex is encouraged, but meaningful relationships are forbidden. This theme resonates strongly in our age of instant entertainment and social media dopamine hits. Shakespeare's works represent the power of language to express the full range of human experience. John's Shakespearean quotes often seem out of place in the sterile world of the future, highlighting how impoverished language becomes when it's designed only for efficiency rather than expression. Let's examine the symbols and motifs that add deeper meaning to the story. Soma is perhaps the most powerful symbol in the novel. This perfect drug represents any substance or activity we use to avoid confronting reality. It could be alcohol, social media, consumer culture, or any form of escapism that prevents us from engaging with life's difficulties. The savage reservation symbolizes the natural human condition, messy, painful, but authentic. It's significant that this is where Shakespeare exists, where families form, and where people still struggle with meaning. Shakespeare's works represent the entire Western literary tradition and the complexity of human emotion. When John quotes Shakespeare in inappropriate moments, it highlights the gap between authentic human expression and the controlled communication of the world state. The lighthouse where John retreats symbolizes both isolation and the search for truth. Lighthouses guide ships safely to shore, but John's lighthouse becomes a beacon that attracts the very corruption he's trying to escape. Ford and the T model represent the Industrial Revolution's impact on human values. Henry Ford's assembly line efficiency has been applied to human production, turning people into products. Now let's dig deeper into some interpretative questions that don't have simple answers. Is the world state actually evil? This is more complex than it first appears. Yes, the world state denies freedom and authentic human experience. But it has also eliminated war, poverty, disease, and suffering. Mustapha Mond makes a compelling argument that most people prefer comfort to freedom. Consider the evidence. Citizens seem genuinely happy. There's no violence, no want, no discrimination. When John tries to liberate the Deltas, they attack him. They don't want to be freed. This forces us to question whether individual freedom is always more valuable than collective well-being. Is John a hero, or a tragic figure? John is often seen as the novel's hero because he stands up for human values against mechanical society. But examine his character more closely. He's violent, self-righteous, and unable to adapt to either world he inhabits. His idealization of civilized society before he experiences it, and his complete rejection of it afterward, suggest he might be as rigid as the system he opposes. Some readers argue that John represents noble savage romanticism, the idea that natural humans are morally superior. Others see him as a cautionary tale about extremism and the inability to find middle ground. What is Huxley's actual solution? Interestingly, Huxley doesn't provide a clear alternative to the world state. The savage reservation is hardly presented as ideal. It's full of disease, violence, and ignorance. John's retreat to isolation ends in suicide. Even Helmholtz, the most balanced character, is exiled to an island. This ambiguity might be intentional. Perhaps Huxley is suggesting that there are no easy answers, that humanity must constantly struggle to balance freedom and stability, individual desires and social needs. How relevant is the novel today? Consider these parallels to our current world. Social media algorithms that show us what we want to see. Pharmaceutical solutions to psychological problems. The decline of deep reading in favor of quick entertainment. Consumer culture that promises happiness through acquisition. And the voluntary surrender of privacy for convenience. But also consider the differences. We still have families, diverse cultures, and political debate. Our technology often connects rather than isolates us. Many people actively seek out challenge and meaning. Everyone in the novel is conditioned, not just world-state citizens. John is conditioned by Shakespeare and savage culture, just as thoroughly as Lenina is conditioned by Soma and Hypnopedia. This raises uncomfortable questions about free will. Are any of our choices truly free, or are we all products of our conditioning? Huxley's portrayal of women and sexuality reveals both progressive and problematic elements. The world state has eliminated many gender inequalities. Women work alongside men and have sexual freedom. But this liberation serves the state's purposes rather than individual fulfillment. Lenina is sexually free but emotionally constrained. John's treatment of Lenina, calling her names and becoming violent, reflects traditional masculine attitudes that Huxley may be critiquing, or unconsciously endorsing. This ambiguity makes the novel rich ground for feminist interpretation. A Brave New World remains relevant because it asks questions we're still answering. How much freedom are we willing to sacrifice for security and comfort? What makes life meaningful? Can technology solve human problems without creating new ones? Huxley wrote this novel as a warning, not a prediction. He wanted readers to think critically about the direction society was heading. The fact that many of his predictions have come true in some form doesn't mean we're doomed to his dystopia. It means we need to actively choose a different path. The novel teaches us to examine our own world critically. When we reach for our phones to avoid boredom, are we reaching for soma? When we surround ourselves with people who think exactly like us, are we creating our own conditioning? When we prioritize efficiency over human connection, are we building our own world state? But the novel also shows us the value of individual resistance. Bernard, Helmholtz, and John may not succeed in changing their world, but their questioning and resistance matter. They represent the human spirit that refuses to be completely controlled. Huxley uses several masterful techniques to make his dystopia believable and disturbing. Dramatic irony occurs throughout as we understand things the characters don't. When citizens talk happily about their conditioning, we see the horror they can't perceive. Juxtaposition contrasts different worlds and values. The sterile efficiency of the hatchery versus the chaotic humanity of the reservation, John's poetic Shakespeare quotes, versus the simplified slogans of world-state propaganda. Satire targets contemporary society through exaggeration. Huxley takes trends he observed in the 1930s, mass production, consumer culture, casual sexuality, pharmaceutical solutions to problems, and pushes them to logical extremes. Foreshadowing appears throughout. From Linda's stories about the world state, to John's early reactions to civilization, building toward the inevitable tragic conclusion. As we conclude our journey through Huxley's Brave New World, remember that great literature doesn't just tell us a story, it challenges us to think more deeply about our own lives and society. This novel asks you to be active readers and critical thinkers. Don't just accept easy answers about whether the world state is good or bad, whether John is heroic or tragic, whether technology is salvation or doom. Consider the evidence, examine your own assumptions, and form your own interpretations. Most importantly, use this novel as a mirror for our own world. What would Huxley think of our current relationship with technology? How do we balance individual freedom with social responsibility? What makes a life worth living? The questions Huxley raised in 1932 are more relevant than ever. It's up to you, the next generation of thinkers, leaders, and citizens, to ensure that our brave new world is one that preserves what makes us human, while embracing what makes us better. Keep questioning, keep thinking, and remember, in a world that might prefer you to be passively happy, choosing to think critically is itself an act of rebellion. Thanks for joining me, Luna Lane, on this deep dive into A Brave New World. Until next time, keep reading, keep thinking, and keep being beautifully, problematically, wonderfully human.